Franciscan Saint of the day, the servant of God, Adolph of Schaumburg, Confessor, First Order. Adolph IV, Duke of Schaumburg, Lord of Holstein, Dishmark, and Wagria, had hardly taken possession of the lands he inherited from his father when the Danish king Valdemar II took up arms to rob him of his paternal inheritance. On July 22, 1227, a hotly contested and bloody battle took place at Bornhoved in Holstein. Sorely pressed, Adolf made a vow that if God gave him the victory, he would forsake the world and don the habit of St. Francis. Immediately, the tide of the battle turned to his advantage. The Dithmark troops, who had allied themselves with the Danes, came over to his side. Shortly, 4,000 Danes lay slain on the battlefield, while their king was wounded, and only by dint of great effort did he escape from being taken prisoner. Because his sons had not yet attained to maturity, Adolf could not at once fulfill his vow. Nevertheless, he attached himself to the Seraphic order more intimately from day to day, and built several Franciscan convents at Lübeck, Hamburg, and Kiel. In the year 1239, his sons were of an age that he could resign the government into their hands, and now he entered the novitiate in the convent at Kiel. In the year 1244, he was ordained to the priesthood and celebrated his first Holy Mass in the convent church at Schwerin. After this, he labored with blessed success in various convents of his order, particularly at Lübeck, Hamburg, and Oldenburg. Withal, he was as modest and retired, as obedient and humble, as if he had completely forgotten his noble birth and former rank. On one occasion, when he was returning to the convent with a jug full of milk, which he had obtained as an alms for the brethren, he was met by his sons and a retinue of nobles and servants on horseback. The first impulse that came over him was one of shame at carrying a jug of milk. But he reproached himself for it at once, poured the milk over his head so that he was completely doused with it, and said to himself, "So you are ashamed of the poverty of Christ? Everyone shall now see on your head what you were ashamed to be found carrying in your hand." A serious illness seized him in the convent at Kiel in the year 1261. When he was assailed by fear at the thought of death and judgment, the Queen of Heaven, accompanied by many saints, appeared to him and said, "Why do you tremble, my son? Why do you fear to let your soul leave this prison of its body, to enter into eternal freedom and bliss? See, my divine Son is approaching in order to receive your spirit and to reward you for the many years you have spent in the poverty and austerity of the order. Come then, O soul, with joy and confidence, for a blessing dwelling awaits you." Filled with heavenly consolation on hearing these words, Adolf departed blessedly in the Lord. In the Franciscan church at Kiel, which has since been destroyed, a memorial tablet with the following inscription was in evidence for many years: "Holstein, mourn not the death of thy ruler. With Francis he reigns on heaven's high throne." On the vows. Consider how agreeable to God must have been the vow which Duke Adolf made, since he had once turned the tide of battle in favor of the prince. Truly, what he promised was something of very great value, of greater worth than any battle he could win. It is clear that the vow was not merely an offering made to God under stress of necessity, but a voluntary sacrifice to him, whose supreme dominion is more clearly recognized in the time of need than at any other time. Such voluntary promises to do a good thing which we are not bound to perform, but to which we bind ourselves with pious intent, must be especially pleasing to God. since, besides the good work that is promised, a person also sacrifices his liberty. If it is in itself highly meritorious that some particular thing be promised to God, such as a voluntary fast, a pilgrimage, some little prayer to be said daily, an alms to be given weekly, then it is all the more agreeable when a man offers himself for a lifetime to the service of God, as Duke Adolph did. Is it surprising, then, that God should reward a vow like that with such extraordinary assistance? Consider that, aside from the special assistance which a vow may bring us in the time of need, a good work is always more meritorious when vowed than if the same work were done without a vow. The vow sanctifies the work even before it is given to God, and the deed becomes the more precious in the way that a blessed candle is more precious than an unblessed one. Binding ourselves with a vow to do anything for a definite time or for a lifetime, we offer to God the tree itself together with the fruit. Furthermore, vows made with contrite sentiments and the determination to give up a habitual failing prove a strong remedy against relapsing into sin. But, you say, the vow deprives me of my liberty, and I place a new burden upon myself. True, but should you not rather say with St. Augustine, "O blessed necessity that leads me to do good, and preserves me from relapsing into sin"? Consider that a serious obligation attaches to the taking of a vow. Vow, says the psalmist, 75:12, and pay to the Lord your God. And the wise man admonishes us, if you have vowed anything to God, defer not to pay it. It is much better not to vow than after a vow not to perform the things promised. Ecclesiasticus 5:3. There may be reasons for deferring the fulfillment of the vow, as was the case with Duke Adolph. If he had died meanwhile, he would not have been responsible to God for it. But he who can do so, and has not been duly dispensed, must fulfill the vow without delay. Otherwise he commits not an ordinary sin, but rather a sacrilege, since he withholds from God a gift which he has given to him. Be cautious not to make a vow rashly, and in matters of consequence, consult your confessor. But if you have made a vow, do not hesitate, but fulfill your promise as soon and as cheerfully as possible, so that you may enjoy the entire fruit of your offering. Prayer of the Church. O God, who makest all things to be of profit to them that love thee, give unto our hearts an abiding love for thee, that our desires, arising from thine inspiration, may not waver through any temptation. Through Christ our Lord. Amen.